For those of you who don't know Albert, he has one of the biggest followings on Facebook for people who are trying to find jobs in and around California. He has helped thousands of people find jobs, including some of my audience members here who have been helped by your presentation in September.
Oh, wonderful.
And they've actually gotten jobs because of that. So thank you very much, Albert, for that. And I begged him. I was like, Albert, your presentation was standing room only in September. I have to have you back here at Northside. So I dragged him out here. Luckily, he was out here for another thing. And I was like, Albert, you've got to come back. So, without further ado, please help me welcome Albert.
Thank you. It's always wonderful to be back. I moved down to Southern California by way of actually a job I found in my own group about January of 2015. So this is my 9th trip up this year. And so everybody asks, when am I going to move back? And I probably will move back at some point, but that's to be determined later. So okay, my speaker's working great. So I want to welcome all of you today to Turbocharge Your Job Search for 2017. I just want to get a really quick show of hands. Who's actually looking for a job here? Okay, all right, so that's a lot of you. And so we're here on December 12th. It's 19 days until New Year's Eve, 20 days until New Year's Day. And so it's in my opinion that you start planning for your year ahead pretty much now, because if you've waited until January 1st, it's pretty much too late. So I want to spend the next hour and a half here, hour and 20 minutes or so, just sort of talking about the mindsets and the methodologies you should consider as you head into the new year looking for either a job that's going to help you pay your really expensive bills here in Silicon Valley, or looking for your dream job that's going to really help make you a much happier person, or whatever have you in between. So we'll just get started here and just cover the agenda really quickly. And so for today's presentation, we're going to talk about 3 tips that are going to make your job search a whole lot easier in 2017. And we're gonna bookmark that by first talking about some of the intentions that you should consider as you move into your job search, and really for this talk today. And then we'll have a Q&A at the end as well, hopefully with time. And if you don't have enough time for those questions, we can also talk over at the bistro later. So, is it okay before I begin the conversation today that we set some intentions for our job searches? Because I know, having done these myself, they're very, very pressure-packed. It makes you feel really, really lost sometimes inside, and it can be pretty difficult. Nod your head, shake your head, whichever. All right, cool. We're going to do it anyway. So actually, before we jump into that, just a quick about me slide. Albert's List is not actually something I do by my day job. By my day job, I actually work in high tech, like many of you. I'm a marketing manager at a technology consulting firm based out of St. Louis, and I work on various like cloud and DevOps type technologies as what I market and support my salespeople every day. And so Albert's List is something I founded back in March 2013. We now have 20,600 members in this group, and people who have been hired in this group have gone on to work at companies like eBay, Google, Cisco, a lot of the main Bay Area companies that you and I have all come to know and love. And I also have a book on Amazon too called The New Grad's Guide to Finding a Marketing Job in the San Francisco Bay Area. You can get it on your Kindle device for $1.99. You can get yourself a paperback version for about $5. And if you just want it from me, just send me an email and I'll give it to you for free. So let's set some intentions before we begin this evening talking about what it means to find a job and how to find it and how to get yourself into that mindset that's going to help you be successful at the end of the day. We're going to roll through a couple of slides here, and we're just going to talk really quickly about how and what these kind of mean. The first one I want to talk about is finding work being an inevitable outcome, right? So some of you in here, as you raised your hands earlier, are without work. And some of you have been out of work maybe for the last week. Some of you might have been without work for the whole year. Some of you in between that. And I realized that in the course of my own job searches, it's a really important mindset to have that you're going to get out of this at some point. Because if you let yourself get caught up in the fact that you don't have a job now and you may not have something next week, and all of a sudden your mind is in next year, then you've completely lost it. Am I right about that? Right. And so one thing I want to go through with this as we go through this presentation today is that if you don't have a job right now, you're going to find one. And I want you to walk out of this room tonight feeling like that is a truth. And if you already have a job and you're looking for your next job, you're going to find that next job too. It's going to happen. The second one I want to actually go through here is that it's okay to ask for help. I know a lot of us here, we're independent people, Silicon Valley, you gotta have that hustler spirit. It's how people like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates made it, and it's how you gotta make it too. And unfortunately, that's not how it is in life, right? In life, you gotta enlist the help of other people. Villages are not built by one individual, and people are not made by just themselves. And so if you're coming into a discussion like this today feeling like you don't exactly know how you're going to get your slice and how you're going to figure it out, it's okay to turn to the person next to you or turn to the person later on in the evening and ask, like, hey, I'm looking for a job in some field that you're here for today. And is there anyone that you might know at some company, or is there any help that you can give? And right, if you never ask the question, the answer is always no. And so at least when you get that no, if it's a no, then you know. And if it's a yes, then great, move forward with the conversation. The third one I want to talk about that's very, very Silicon Valley related is that it's okay to find a job for the sake of finding a job. How many of us are millennials in here? All right, so there's a little bit of you. And how many of you here listen to other millennials talk about how you have to wake up every day finding your passion, and how you have to that kind of contrived language every time. I want you to throw that out today because it means absolutely nothing. Words that I obviously can't use to describe it that are parental friendly. And so I want you to know that it's okay to find a job just to pay the bills, because when toast costs $7 here and a bottle of water costs $5, it's okay to find a job for the sake of a job so that you can actually live and see tomorrow. And so I want you to know that with the tips and advice that I give here today, and even the people whom you meet later who might be recruiters here in the room, that if you're looking for a job just to keep yourself afloat, that you shouldn't feel guilty about it. The next one is that it's okay to feel vulnerable about your job search. I know I just asked a bunch of you who don't have jobs to raise your hand, and that's actually a great start. We're not here to identify you, we're not here to crucify you, we're not here to make you feel bad, because all of us go through points in our life where finding a job is a challenge for us. And if you gotta turn to the person next to you and say, hey, I've been sending out thousands and thousands and thousands of resumes, as we've seen in my group. It's okay to talk about it. If you've been going to job interviews and you haven't been working out, it's okay to talk about it and, understand the lessons that come from it. The next one is something that's relevant as of really the last couple of weeks. So I know I'm in Silicon Valley. I know that probably none of you voted for Donald Trump, but the fact that Donald Trump is president does not trump your job hunting ability. So as much as we want to sit here and think about how what he might do the next couple of years might not be very good for the country, what he does doesn't really impact you as far as your ability to find your next job. We live, thankfully, in a country that allows you a lot of liberties and a lot of freedoms to do whatever it is that you need to pursue what happiness is defined in yourself. And so whether it was Hillary or whether it was now Trump being president, you are still in control of your own destiny. And so with that, let's start 2017 tonight. Who's ready?
Yes.
Good. I think I'm seeing it. So the first thing I want to talk about tonight is evolving your personal brand. And before I jump into the meat and the nitty-gritty of every section tonight, I want to tell you guys a little story about how each and every one of these sections applies to me. So as you guys know, this is the Caltrain. And so the first story I want to tell is about a trip I made actually the last time I was up here. And so I remember going up to the city for some meetings that I now forget about. But as I was leaving Caltrain that day, I was hurrying to one of the baby bullet trains out in Daly City that we all know and love because we all hate going down the 20 or so stations that it takes to get down to Sunnyvale. And I was on the phone with a friend. I forget what we were talking about. And I just wanted to get on the train and find myself a seat and sit down and just like look out the window for the next 20 minutes. As I sit down and find this seat from this one person, he looks over to me and he looks like he's really surprised, partially excited. And he looks at me and he's like, "Are you Albert from Albert's List?" And I tell my friend over the phone, "This has just gotten really creepy. I'm going to have to call you back." Because getting identified in public is one of the weirdest things ever, especially when you don't know who the person is on the other side. So I turn to him and I ask him, "Who are you and do I know you?" And he says, "No, you don't know me at all, but I have been in your jobs group for a while. And I was added by a friend of mine who has been in your jobs group since about the 100th member. And by this time we were about 18, 19,000 members. So this was probably way, way back in like early 2014. And we chat all the way on the way back home. It turns out that he was originally at Google working as a support specialist in fraud, and now he works at Lyft. And while he doesn't need a job, he was more than willing to offer me advice on how I could better my group, because that's something I ask everyone that I meet, because I think that when I built my community, it's really not for me as much as it's for everybody else, and I want to find ways for people to improve how they find work. And I have discussions and just kind of weird encounters with people like this all the time. Last week, when I was in Vegas for Amazon's reInvent conference, I was just going around talking to people at certain booths, and one guy points me out at the Optimizely booth, and he says, "Hey, you're Albert from Albert's List." And here I am minding my own professional business, and somebody identifies me off my jobs group. And then we go on to have a discussion. I realized I was on a Skype call with him like 3 years ago regarding, I think, something related to my jobs group. And so the point that I want to, I think, go across with this whole story is that you build your personal brand around what you're known for, what you're good at. And when you bring value to other people, which all of you do in your own special certain way here, you can be thanked for it, be known for it, and be identified and acknowledged for it in your own public sphere, even though it could be really, really creepy too. But nonetheless, I think even after being just randomly talked to on the Caltrain, it's nice to know that you can contribute to someone else in their life at the end of the day. And I want the same for all of you in this room tonight, because I know that if we all wanted to start a company tomorrow, we would all have really great strengths that we could bring to whatever we were building. And whatever we are building starts with the development of our personal brand. So we'll get started with that here just right now. So what is your personal brand? Your personal brand is a combination of your message to the world, your commitment to the world, your change that you're bringing to the world, and the knowledge that you have. And so what are these things specifically? Your message, right, is a really, really brief statement describing what it is that you believe in. So I believe that each and every one of you here tonight deserves to chase your slice. Your slice being what you need, what you can have in your career and what you want to do for a living. Your commitment is pretty much what you're committed to helping other people do. So I am committed here tonight to help each and every one of you understand what you need to do to help turbocharge your career in 2017. Your message, of course, is going to be different. Your change the world is how you're going to transform whatever challenges that exist in the world right now that will make the world a better place to be. So my change in the world is that I want to create communities that drive attention and really bring light to people who deserve that attention so that they can find work and be productive in their day-to-day careers. And finally, your knowledge, which is your skill set. My skill set is in marketing, content marketing, product marketing, managing communities. And so when you walk into an interview or when you network with someone later, you can use each and every one of these 4 statements to help open up a conversation and allow people to get to know you more. Because people like to talk to people who they at least know to some degree, like to some degree, and trust to some degree. So your personal brand also needs to be clear, as the acrostic says. Consistent, leading, engaging, adaptive, and real. And this works in how you come across with the 4 things that we mentioned earlier. In order to say these and put it out there, you have to be consistent about it. So you have to talk about it often. You have to talk about it from a leading perspective, where people see you as somebody that they can go to for job search or go to for a topic that you're well versed in. For example, I actually haven't ever recruited a day in my life, but I've hunted for jobs so many times, as you'll learn in a later story, that I'm able to lead the conversation because I've sat in so many interviews that I understand how to interview really well. Your personal brand needs to be engaging. So not only do you need to share your story, share your message, share your commitment with other people in the world, but you need to engage with other people as they give you feedback for the message that you're putting out in the world as well. 4th, your message needs to be adaptive. So adaptive just meaning that you can adapt it to certain different mediums, whether you're talking about it on Facebook, whether you're talking about it on Twitter, whether you're emailing it to people, or whether you're networking with other individuals. Your message has to be able to resonate across different platforms. And then finally, it has to be real and authentic. So however you're coming across with your personal brand, whether it's something that you're doing because you believe that something happened in your life, that this is why you do what you do, or because you see that a particular industry is impactful to the rest of the world, that you take on this particular career. So building a digital brand, in addition to this, is one of the most important things you can do because it's the quickest way to reach people. So back in my days, I worked in social media actually to start out my career before I moved into product marketing and as a marketing manager. And so the way that you lead really with anything these days is you produce content. Content being your ability to write blogs, your ability to create a web page for yourself, build up your own LinkedIn profile. Actually, a show of hands, how many of you here have a LinkedIn profile? And how many of you here don't? Just you? Okay, cool. That's fine. You're still in school. So your ability to create content, whether it's writing something on your LinkedIn, creating your own blog, writing something on Facebook, et cetera, and doing it consistently, like we mentioned it earlier, helps you get the attention that you need and helps you spread your message further. Engagement is pretty much people commenting, liking, sharing, talking to you privately about what you've created. And then luck and timing are things that you can't really control, but when you do whatever you do long enough, it eventually starts growing. So for example, with Albert's List, we only had, I think, 260 people after 1 year. And it really wasn't until the 3rd year when we started getting a consistent 1,000 people a month that we started really growing the group into what it is today with 20,650 people. And so after time, you build up that enough traction where you build up a platform where you can share a message with other people. Okay. The other aspect of building your personal brand is also networking. So how many of us here go to networking events in the Bay Area regularly? And how many of us actually like doing it? So not many of you, right? Because the first question that people come up to you when they ask you, when they meet you, is they ask what you do for a living. And sometimes it feels really, really, really dreary and sad because maybe you don't have a job, or maybe because we attach ourselves so much to our jobs in this area that when we have nothing to share, it makes us feel soulless and valueless, especially when you're in San Francisco where everybody seems to attach themselves to what they do for a living. So that's really not what networking is as much as it's just showing off. I'm a developer and I'm disrupting some industry here that needs to be disrupted, right? Which is kind of like the calling card of a lot of people in San Francisco. Networking, on the other hand, really is building relationships with people, building your own business, and adding value to others before yourself. For me, when I go networking, it is never really about myself directly. It's about how I can help other people. So the first question I like to ask other people when I go networking is, what brings you here tonight? And this is a question I ask in general because you want to know what brought somebody to a particular event. People don't just sign up for events, drive 10, 20, 30 miles, and then just show up to not do anything. And so the most important part of really any networking and any conversation, and really this extends to all parts of life, is your ability to listen and your ability to understand where someone else is coming from. And so when you do that, that's when your networking and your networking experience gets a whole lot better. What networking is not is selling yourself, and it's not necessarily about you, and it's also not inauthentic. So a lot of people go to networking events because they want to throw their business cards around. They want to spray and pray in the hopes that they'll get a lot of people messaging them back, coffee meetings, and then hopefully they can sell, and then they can move on with their lives. Unfortunately, right, in the world of business in general, people work with people that they know, like, and trust. And if they don't know you, like you, or trust you, or one of those combinations, then working with you is really hard to begin with. And so your ability to master your networking along with building your brand is pretty much the secret sauce to how you end up not only getting your next job, but also making advancements in your own industry and beyond. So networking fits in the job hunt in a lot of ways. We've kind of covered this with a couple of other things, but it gets you in the door, it opens new doors, it puts you at the table, it helps you understand industry insights, and it extends your brand offline. So as you might know or not know, according to the Wall Street Journal, they wrote an article a couple years back, and they said that 90% of jobs get filled before they're even posted online. A lot of people like to put jobs up because they want to just see what's out there. But for the most part, people want to go and find people that they already know within their networks to help them get hired. In fact, I was having dinner with a friend on Friday, and she's looking for an HR coordinator, but this job is never going to be posted because they want to do a secret search. And it's only that if you're in my friend's network that you would know that this job is being hired for. And so it's getting to know people, getting to know them well, and really being there kind of at the right time too that helps you get in. But even more so, just having conversations with people at networking events, getting to know them, getting to understand what's going on within that industry that helps add even more value. And furthermore, networking also puts your brand offline because it means that you can meet people and they can see that you actually exist, as opposed to being, say, a robot that exists online that just sits there and creates content all day and doesn't really do much else. So where do you network? It is in my opinion that you can network in two ways. One is broadly and one is in depth, which seem like the only two ways. And so I make these two distinctions because I was somebody who, when I first graduated from college, had no idea how to network. In fact, I woke up the first day, the Monday after graduation, despite having a subcontractor gig, really thinking and wondering how I got myself in a job that had me working at home and not being around anyone. And I jumped on LinkedIn into my university's alumni association group, and I pleaded for help from anyone. And the first person who responded to me gave me a call back and said, hey, you need to just get out there and you just need to network, and network broadly. And that's actually what I did for the first 4 years coming out of my career up through about 2014, where I would just go to networking events because I needed to meet people and I needed to practice networking and I needed to understand how to network and how to network really well. And so if networking is something that you haven't done have never done for yourself and want to do for 2017, starting broadly would probably work well for you. And so these are things like Network After Work, Chamber of Commerce events, alumni networking events for your university out here, where you can show up and where you can talk to other people and just get a general lay of the land and see how you can help other people, because you never know who you can benefit at the end of the day. On the other hand, if you've been in your career for a while and you have an understanding of what you want to do for the coming year and beyond, 2017 should also be about networking in depth. So for example, you have associations. So I work in marketing. So the American Marketing Association is the place I want to show up to, or the Public Relations Society of America. And I want to go to those because I'm going to meet other people who work in marketing and communications and can help me with their job search and or help me with my job search too, or just in general get to know more people in my industry so that when I want to move into another job field, it's a whole lot easier. In addition, you can also go to events and venues of interest. So for example, if you want to work in tech, look for, say, an event that's being held inside a conference room at a tech company around here. Those happen all the time. And then finally, you can also go to like really focused Facebook groups that focus on, say, marketing or technology or coding or design or things like that. Like, for example, I'm in a Facebook group that's focused on Asian Americans and technology and marketing and media, actually. And so, you know, these groups add a lot of value because they let you see specifically a slice of your industry and help you really narrow down to the people that you really want to meet. So as you look towards the end of this first section, we want to consider how we turbocharge your career for 2017 from a networking and branding point of view. Number one would be build and share a message. Find what you're committed to, find a message that you can resonate with, and put it out there. The second one is to get organized. So figure out like what events work for you, figure out what it is that you want to go out and do for your career, and go for it. And then finally, it's to live and breathe your purpose, whichever it might be. If it's just to find a job, then do that. If it's to find your dream job, then really get your message out there and make sure that other people hear it. Cool. For your networking, it's making your conversation about other people. It's making sure that you know what other people are there for and how you can add value to their lives, because when you pay it forward, it comes back tenfold to you. If you find out what other people want, you can have anything that you want as well. Focus on what events are for you, whether it's going to networking events that are broadly applicable to you or specific to you for your industry. And then finally, it's not who you know or what you know, it's who knows you. So build yourself a message, build yourself a platform where somebody on the Caltrain can recognize you from maybe your blog or your Twitter or something. And so you know that you can bring an impact to someone else with really all the gifts and all the goodness that you have in your life right now. Cool. So that's the conclusion of the first tip that I have, which is to evolve and build your personal brand. So the second story I have here today is, second tip rather that I have today is owning your self-awareness. So we're going to jump into something a little bit more spiritual here, but I promise that it's going to apply into your career and into your job search, I promise. So the first story I have here is really about my own career. So this is Santa Clara University right here. It's where I graduated back in 2010. And for those of you who may or may not know me, I have been fired or laid off about 3 times in the first 6 years of my career. I am not a shining beacon of success necessarily, and I have been fired for all sorts of reasons, from companies not having the budget, to feuding with my manager, to simply not showing up in the way that I should be present in my own job, as I was with my own alma mater for 6 months in 2013. And the reason why I tell this story is because it's important to know where you are in your life journey along the way. And as I hit the end of 2016, it's really cool to see how far that's come, because earlier in 2016, I was laid off in January, actually about a week after New Year's, because my company had purchased so many different pieces of technology and acquired so many companies and tried to expand so quickly that they were going into the red. And so I was walked into the conference room at my company and told that my last day would be in 2 weeks. And after all my pleading and denying and wanting to find other ways out, I went home, jumped on Albert's list, and began my job search. When I began my job search, I had a lot of people asking me why I got laid off, and a lot of people had really good, they took my answers really well because my company had no budget. But probably one of the more important conversations I had was one that I had in San Diego. I was 21 floors up in this startup in downtown San Diego, overlooking the water. You could see San Diego's airport from one side, you could see Mexico from the other, bounded by the ocean on both sides. It was absolutely beautiful. And I didn't take the job, but it would have been wonderful to see that every single day. And I remember them looking at my resume and saying, we've noticed that you've switched jobs a lot over the last 3 years. You've gone from this job to this job to this job. Can you tell us why? And I remember, if this was something from a couple of years earlier, I would have probably said something along the lines of, oh, they just simply weren't good fits, and left it at that, and probably not have gotten the job. But this time I chose to go a more self-aware route, because I know that some of those jobs simply weren't good fits, and in other cases they were simply because I didn't show up very well. Especially back in my Santa Clara University job, where I actually worked in the Alumni Association for 6 months, but didn't end up doing a very good job because I was focused on my own projects of creating networking events at that time, and somehow forgot that I had a job to go to from 9 to 5 every day. So I looked over at the founder and the co-founder of this company, and I said, I look at where I've come from then, and I look at where I am now, and I understand why these past jobs didn't quite work out for me. It's because I wasn't a very focused individual, and I didn't know what I was doing there. But as you look at my resume going forward over the last 2 companies, I've found a lot more purpose in what I do on a day-to-day basis, because I now know why I do the marketing that I do for these particular kinds of technologies, and why I've moved out of the nonprofit space. And I do these because I'm passionate about technology that a lot of people don't notice or care about until this technology doesn't work anymore. DevOps, retail operations, things like that, stuff on the back end. And I eventually got an offer, and actually I turned down the offer, and they called me a month later saying that I was still the best guy that they had interviewed. So here, name your number if you'd like. I didn't end up going with the offer still after that, but it was really nice knowing that being self-aware for that very moment was able to at least leave a lasting impression that was able to get a company to want to have me on board. And so, for each and every one of you here tonight, as you hit the end of your 2016 and move into your 2017, I want to encourage all of you to be self-aware in where you are standing in your career, whether you've been out of work for over a year, whether you've been out of work for a couple of weeks, or whether you're seeking your next job, or whether you're newly graduated and wondering what the heck you want to do next. So, self-awareness. Let me get a raise of hands. I know this is a very spiritual concept, and people like Gary Vaynerchuk love talking about this idea all day. Does anyone use this word in their day-to-day vocabulary? Okay, so a few of you. So we're all gonna learn about what self-awareness is tonight then. So self-awareness is what I describe as valuing and appreciating your journey, understanding your self-worth and your value, and exploring the world around you. Valuing and appreciating your journey is kind of like what I discussed with my interview answer to the folks who were interviewing me back in San Diego. It's understanding where you've been, what you've done, and why those things are important in the scope of your life, and how possibly moving to this next company is going to help you with it. The second part is understanding your self-worth and value, is understanding the impact that you bring to your company. As people every day, right, we know that we go to our companies to work, not because because we're passionate about what we do, but your boss doesn't hire you because you're passionate about what you do. They hire you because they need you to fill a role that will hopefully add value to their bottom line. I say this often in my group, and it's a very cold way of putting it, but if your boss didn't need to hire you, they probably wouldn't, because it eats too much into shareholder value in general. It's a really sad, cold way to look at it, but it's an unfortunate truth. But understanding your self-worth and your value and how you add value to the bottom line or save your company at the end of the day is one of the most important things that I've discovered and that you'll discover in the last couple of years, because it allows you to really get straight to the point of why you want to be hired at your company tomorrow. Once they understand, oh yeah, he adds value because he bridges the gap between how sales and marketing interacts, or she bridges the gap between hiring people and bringing on the right people that help move this company forward, and we're going to bring them in because they have that value and they were able to communicate it. And the third one is just exploring the world around you. So in accordance really with my career, I spent a lot of the first 3 years of my career exploring around. I started out in a subcontractor role doing Salesforce implementations, moved into a startup doing social media marketing. Then I moved into Cisco doing community management, and then I did a little bit more of that afterwards. And really, Albert's List was actually conceived on a day where I was a very disengaged employee. I was bored. It was 3 p.m. I was posting job listings to my Facebook, and I was thinking, maybe I should start a group on this. And so I did. And these are just how these weird things started in Silicon Valley. But exploring the world around you gets you sort of to those ends. And even if you might not be focused today and going to your broadly based networking events, etc., it's going to help you along the way, because eventually you're going to find your path. You're going to choose to focus. You're going to land somewhere, and you're going to wonder, how you didn't get here sooner. But you're also going to know and appreciate that being lost and being in that journey all these years was probably one of the best things could have happened to you. Well, that's the part one. So what does self-awareness look like? Self-awareness is checking in with yourself. It's assessing your capabilities, taking breaks from the madness that is your job search, and leveraging your network and your contacts. So I'm going to go through each of these separately. Checking in with yourself is something that I think is an underrated thing that people don't do enough in this world, and is actually something that's perfectly done when you commute your way home, because the traffic is so bad in the Bay Area these days. It really just starts by asking yourself, how am I doing? What's going through my mind today? What am I in tune with as I sit on really bad traffic here on the 101 with my career, with my skill set, with how I'm doing at work, with how I'm interacting with my coworkers, and so much more. And checking in with yourself is really good because it allows you to give the feedback that you want to give, that maybe other people have been wanting to give to you, but you're just not really sure about what it sounds like, and you may not want to hear it from them, but you do need to hear it for yourself. And checking in with yourself is beneficial because it allows you to wade through all of the excuses, all of the BS that you may be telling yourself on a day-to-day basis that may be preventing you from doing your best at work or finding a job. And these things can be also alleviated by checking in with other people, good friends, a job hunt buddy, for example, who you call at the end of maybe every couple of days, and you talk about where that job search is going. I had a friend who, a couple of days after I gave my talk here in September, she was unfortunately laid off. And, I understand that challenge, and I understand how bad it was, because this person had really, really, really wanted to work in the industry that she was in. And, she and I checked in with each other every couple of days just to make sure that her search was going well, and that, she was doing what she needed to get further, and also to listen to her vent and listen to her worries. And checking in with those worries on your own allows you to talk yourself out of that. Know that maybe it's not as bad as what you think it is, and that you will get through it. And it's also a really great way to build confidence. The second point is assessing your capabilities. So assessing your capabilities is talking about your skills. What are you good at? What are you passionate about? What is it that you want to do? And how is it that you're going to get there? Do you need to get certain certifications? Do you need to get to know a specific person to get to where you want to go to next? And then, of course, there's taking breaks from the madness. So, I'm not so great at this, but the importance of taking a vacation, the importance of taking your phone and turning it off and going up on a drive on Skyline Boulevard, the 35, which is actually one of the best drives in the Bay Area because you don't even know that you're in Silicon Valley anymore for that moment. And, just breathing in that fresh air and, thinking of yourself anew because it's so chaotic here on a day-to-day basis. There's so much going on. There's so much innovation happening, and you do need to get away from it all. And then finally, it's leveraging your network and leveraging your contacts so that you can go out and you know exactly who to talk to, and you know the message and the purpose of why you're reaching out to these people so that you can be helped. So how do you bring all of this self-awareness to the interview process? As I stated earlier, right, it's your ability to be able to assess where you've been in the past to really understand where you're going to in the future. So the first part is understanding your situational assessments. So the STAR method, if you haven't heard of, is a really great method to go through this. STAR stands for situation, task, awareness, and result. And so this is the most basic way of finding out how to succeed in your interview process because you're able to tie everything that you've ever accomplished into a singular story, where you were able to solve a problem that had arisen as a situation, done 3 different tasks to help solve that problem, and then come up with the specific results that solve that problem. That's the first one. And then the second one is really the importance of why companies hire in the first place. So as we know, the unfortunate truth about business is that every business is in business to turn a profit, and that every business is also in business to stay in business. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in business in the first place. And so one thing that I say from time to time is that you're either going to make your company money or you're going to cost your company money. So to understand where you best fit within a company, understand whether you do one or the other, and then knock your value home. So for example, I work in marketing and I interface directly with sales on a day-to-day basis. And because I interface with sales on a day-to-day basis, I help them with making sales to our customers, and that helps drive pipeline and drive revenue. And so I hopefully help my company make money. Your mileage may obviously vary, but your ability to understand the methodology and the process that goes through this is going to help you understand how your individual skills and how your individual abilities are going to help a company succeed in the short and long run. In addition to that, we'll talk about resumes and cover letters really quickly here. Your resumes and your cover letters are also indicative of your ability to demonstrate self-awareness because of how you list your strengths and weaknesses, how you list your past history of what you've done, as well as telling the right story to get you to where you need to go. And one thing that I've noticed lately, I've reviewed a lot of resumes from people who have come through my group. And I was going through resumes just this last weekend because that's what I do for fun. I read resumes and I edit them, and it's cool. And one thing that I really saw at a lot of these resumes was that a lot of people were also selling themselves short. They were telling me what they did, they were telling me what tools and programs they used, but they weren't telling me how what they used and how they used it impacted the company that they worked at. And so if there's any one piece of advice that you come away with in this presentation, if you listen to nothing else I say, it's that you should stop selling yourself short, because I have a feeling a lot of you are. And that's also part of your self-awareness process too, because it's important for you to not only espouse what accomplishments you've done, but also show how those accomplishments have impacted a company at any given time. So that's the first one. And then the second part is pretty much just beating the system. And it's using keywords on your resume to beat the automated tracking system, and also differentiating yourself through the different amount of tactics that you use to get your resume through. Whether it's going online, going through referrals, applying through LinkedIn, getting LinkedIn Premium, whichever and what have you. And so those pieces of self-awareness, which to resources we'll talk about at our next section, will help further your job search in 2017 as well. So how do you turbocharge your job search for 2017 with regards to self-awareness? Number one, you unpack your journey. You understand where you have been, you understand where you are now, and you have an idea of where you want to go in the future. Number two is you assess your personal value. You understand what you're worth, you understand what it is that you're capable of, and you also stop selling yourself short. And you make yourself look amazing because the world needs more of that. And finally, you explore on purpose. So you add in those pieces of value into your resume, into your interview. You talk about, within your interview process, about how you have not only leveraged the literal part of your career, but the spiritual part of your career. Because there is a little bit of soul, right? We wake up every day and we spend a third of our day at work. And while some of us do go to work just to earn a paycheck, like I did for the first 3 years of my career, there's a little bit of spirit to that, and understanding that, you know, we sometimes do things because we want to explore on purpose and understand what's around us and the options around us. Because in school, you're only taught a certain fraction of what exists in the world. And then you go out in the real world and you realize there's about 1 million other things that teachers never told you about. And so the self-awareness aspect is probably the most important piece of education you can ever give yourself upon graduation. Cool. So that was the spiritual mumbo jumbo. I'm glad you all made it through it. We'll get to our section number 3, master of your own resources. And so becoming a master of your own resources means that you're not only self-aware of what's out there, and that you also know what to get, how to get there, and what kind of journey you have to take to get to that point. So this is Albert's List. And Albert's List was something, like I said, was a group that I founded in March of 2013 and has grown from 0 to 20,665 members organically over the past 3.5 years. And we are a group of a lot of job seekers, recruiters, hiring managers, and so much more. And not only do we offer jobs in there, but we also offer a lot of advice on a day-to-day basis. We have people in there asking about how to negotiate a raise. We have people in there talking about how to write their resume, editing their resume. Do they want cover letters? What are recruiters looking for? And so it's a nice little hodgepodge of topics on a day-to-day basis. And I'm truly grateful for the fact that people sometimes wake up every day, and my group is the reason why they use Facebook, and otherwise they wouldn't be on Facebook in the first place. And you know, I'm also really grateful for the fact that people have gotten hired through this, because at no point in my life did I imagine myself starting a Facebook group to help other people get jobs. I thought that, you know, my life would be at a different spot by now. But, you know, nonetheless, life does things to you, and, you know, you're here for different reasons. And so, you know, Albert's List is one of many different things that exist on the web and the internet, but it's one of the more important resources out there because it connects you directly to people. And when it comes to the job hunt, that's probably one of the most important things you want, because it's people who hire people and not machines who hire people. So I start really out this section with knowing what you want is half the battle, and then knowing where to go is the other half. So if you come in here knowing what you want already, or having an idea of what you want, then you're pretty much halfway there and you need to find the resources. If you come in here not knowing what you want at all, but you have an idea of what to go and use, then you're also halfway there too, and you just need to figure out what it is that you want. And so in whichever way you go, whether it's the bottom half or the first half, I think most of us are halfway there. We're just trying to figure out how to get the other half figured out. And so the first thing I want to say is that job boards do work. The way I got my job currently was through, I think, Monster actually, where a recruiter reached out to me and called me in the middle of the day while I was finishing another interview back in January and asked if I was interested in moving to St. Louis. And you know, I've lived in Southern California where the beach is literally 5 miles away from me. And I was like, maybe I'll think about it, but sure, let's talk about it. And surely one thing turned to another, and I was taking interviews as I was, you know, driving up and down the state, and I ended up getting the job. And now I work in a really cool gig where I get to work from home and sometimes in my pajamas taking phone calls. But you know, job boards do work, and you can take advantage of LinkedIn, Indeed, Simply Hired, and so much more. And the other way that these job boards work is because they put your name out there. They bring a lot of awareness to you in ways where you don't have to reach out to people all the time, and other people can reach out to you. Yes?
Oh, wait, hold on. Before we take questions, I want to make sure they're on the microphone because I got Anthony here who's recording, so let's just make sure all questions go on the mic.
Yeah, so this is a great set of job boards. So there's 7 here. I noticed Glassdoor is missing, and the second part of my question is being inundated with all of these. You know, you sign up for them and then they syndicate, and it's just sometimes setting filters at the right one. I'm just getting massive emails and it's hard to follow them. What do you do about that?
So, I mean, I know Glassdoor is not on here. There wasn't really enough room. And there's like 10 other job boards I could stick on here. So it really is whatever it is that you want to use. I think filtering and all of that stuff is kind of up to you too. I noticed that if you filter down, sometimes you don't get as many like job leads. And I think it's because there's so many platforms out there, and none of these platforms have really done it right in terms of being able to deliver the right jobs that are really relevant and everything. So I guess it's really up to the specific platform. I can't really say like how you can better filter it as much as it's just keep on tweaking it to see how it fits your needs.
And then each one requires.
Wait, hold on.
As follow-up, thank you. You know, it's just being inundated how to filter. That's one solution. But each one of those, as you click through, also have like login and different application formats versus just go to the LinkedIn profile or you know, here's my resume and cover letter. It requires like specific logins, like tracking all of that. So I was looking to see if you had the top 3 that was most effective.
Ooh, you know, I like LinkedIn because it ties directly back to real people. And then really it's just kind of a crapshoot from there. I don't like how Monster, Career Builder, or Indeed, or any of these other ones do them either. Somebody needs to come and disrupt this whole thing and, you know, figure it out as it goes from there. Yeah.
If you don't mind, if I could touch on that question, just want to let you know that I'd say that Indeed is probably one of the stronger resume databases. Monster and Career Builder tend to be a bit convoluted, and many sometimes just kind of hit and miss. But Indeed is a bit cleaner. If you just streamline your resume really well, you should get some solid hits. LinkedIn, Albert was right, probably be top of the list, but I'd probably go Indeed next.
And Lou is a recruiter, so he knows what he's talking about.
And I would
You can all talk to him later.
As a librarian who does searching for people to find jobs, I would say Indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Good to get it from the professional's mouth. So making the most of both, understanding how to use like your communities and your job boards. I'm of the belief that, you know, you got to be specific about what you want. So your resume will tell half the battle. How you fill out your profile will tell the other half. Update your profile often because with, I think, Monster and Career Builder and all of these, if you have your resume updated, you'll appear closer to the top of all of the resume lists. And then in addition to that, I think when you're job hunting, it's also good to have a job hunting buddy where you give to others and you're also proactive about helping other people. And being proactive also means that you reach out to individual recruiters or hiring managers through LinkedIn, through your network, or which have you. I've always found that just applying to a job doesn't necessarily mean that your time has been well spent. That if you can reach out to a real person and have that conversation or be introduced, then that usually helps your job hunting odds out a whole lot better. So the other aspect is staying organized in your job search. When I help people with their job hunts, I tell them to use something like Google Drive, where they can put out an Excel spreadsheet of their job hunt, where they are, color code each cell based on where they are in their process by process, because that keeps you organized. And you know what, at the end of the day, it also helps you feel like you've been productive in your job search, because you can send out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of resumes and felt like you've done nothing, when in reality, you've actually accomplished a lot. So, you know, there's also contacting recruiters and having a recruiter database. one of the early iterations of Albert's list that I had was a Excel spreadsheet of just recruiters from around the country with their emails and what they recruit for. And way back in the day, actually, that was actually how I shared my contact info with other people. And that eventually has become what's now my list. There's also, understanding your unemployment and healthcare benefits. So as somebody who may be unemployed, you also have access to unemployment benefits that you're entitled to based on how long you've worked and what you've made. And I believe it goes between 6 and 12 months. Other than that, it's signing up for notifications, getting daily job boards, understanding what's on Indeed. They send you a daily digest of what people are hiring for. And then there's also taking care of you, right? So taking a break from all of that madness, to go take that vacation that you may not have taken, to go get that massage, to go for a run, to go and just sit in the park and stare at the sky for half an hour is always good in terms of being therapeutic for helping you out in what is usually a pretty chaotic time. So with all the extra time that you have as well, you can also take advantage of a lot of different resources that are available around the area. So, there are job search organizations that you can take advantage of. For example, JVS up in San Francisco is really good for folks who are looking for job opportunities and also to learn Salesforce.com and things like that. You have the library here. I know that Cheryl's got an entire cache of job hunting books that it looks like is on the right-hand corner over there.
A couple of my favorites here.
And so, she, in addition to me, has people who come in to talk about how to spruce up your LinkedIn profile or how to do your resume editing. Or, I even talked to her earlier today about how potentially we should do something around the area of interview preparation. How many of you in here think that maybe you need to improve what you are like in interviews and would like to have something here around that? So there you go.
Okay, I'll make it happen.
There you go. And so there's that. And so if you get yourself around people, like down in Orange County, I do something at an organization called Women Helping Women and Men to Work. And so this is an organization that was founded about 35 years ago. And every month they do like resume reviews. They get you in on their program and they help you even actually pick out interview clothing. And they make sure that you can get back on your feet and they get you all the resources that are out there. In addition to that, there are also educational opportunities. So in the internet age, we have more access than ever to great resources and great technologies out there. So who here has heard of Coursera or Udemy or any of these, right? And so for $15, I think right now during the holiday season, you can go on Udemy and you can buy yourself a course on how to learn SQL or how to learn digital marketing. You can learn digital marketing actually and inbound marketing from HubSpot for free and get your certification that way. And and even you can go on iTunes and you can take lectures from MIT or Harvard on topics that you never thought you'd ever learn about. And these are ways to fill in the gaps during your job search where you can become better at what it is that you want to do or open your mind up to new and different kinds of thoughts. And everything, some of these things are free, some of the things cost money. And, you can even get like nano degrees or whichever from some of these as well. And these will all help you in making a better way for your job search. And then finally, you can also do entrepreneurship. I know that for a lot of people, once they are out of a job, they have opportunities such as doing Lyft, doing Uber, doing Postmates, what have you, or just starting their own business. We all live once. And so if you want to go and take that risk and take that chance and work for yourself so that only you can fire yourself, now is also a chance to do it too. Or you can just go on vacation. Which I've mentioned multiple times, and hey, I think that vacation is something that is not emphasized enough and that we should do more often because it's cold at this time of the year and we should all go somewhere warm. So to turbocharge your and become a master of your resources in 2017, it's all about knowing what you want, staying organized and making the most of your time. Right, so as we just mentioned, it's going out and getting those education courses. It's getting organized and understanding, mastering Google Calendar and getting on Google Docs and putting down how you are in your job search and where you are in your job search, because you get lost after a while and sometimes you just want to make it work. And it's making the most of your time, going on vacation, respecting yourself, taking a break, having a rest. So putting it all together now, I think that we reached that point where I think we can talk about where you're going in 2017. And so I think the first part is really just putting out that checklist. Figure out your personal brand and your message, owning your self-awareness, and knowing your resources. I think those are the three things we talked about today. And I think if you're able to master those three, beyond like the really super nitty gritty about where to write your resume and where to put specific pieces of text, you can move forward. And because it is the holiday season, I do want to give all of you something today. So I created a checklist for all of you, and we're going to distribute this slide, but if you go to bit.ly/job-checklist, you can get a 3-page checklist on how to go through a lot of the things that we just talked about here over the last 45 minutes and really be able to take your job search to the next level. And so, you can literally start your 2017 when you go home tonight and fill it out for yourself and get your year started. Thank you.